Welcome back. I've set up again for doing the next step, which is inserting, well, the next step is preparing the window panels. I've already prepared 4 sets of panels and applied the frames to them, so I know everything will fit in the box. We're going to start inserting the window jig part of the way and then apply the window panels in case they want to slip out, then we don't have to fuss with it too much. These corner wires are where the sign light strip came out. It's the opposite corner from where the pogo pin connectors are, over on this side. So now we're working with the opposite corners. It only has one set of leads coming out. We want to orient the brain box, back in shot, orient the brain box so that the sloped portion faces downward or towards the top of the TARDIS box that we're putting in. Therefore, the flat edge of the box, as I'm looking down on it, will be towards me. It will end up being at the bottom of the TARDIS, or facing the bottom of the TARDIS. So this step, we've got the heat shrink on the leads from the light jig, and I'm going to put those leads into the central portion. I just slip them in there ahead of the jig, into the central portion. As you see, they're sliding ahead towards the top of it. This next step looks harder than it is. It's just aligning the corner where the leads are from the jig to the corner where the sign lights are, and we're going to slowly slip it in, making sure that the leads from the sign lights as well as the leads from the opposite corner stay in the corner and don't get jammed up at the side of the jig. Now I'm just going to, I would say, slow, gently run it down there, but it really wants to fall. So we're going to slide it back a little bit so we can see the next step in this process. I'm going to find something to lean this up on too so you can see it. No luck finding something to lean. So here we go. These leads from the window jig, are slipped in ahead of it in the central portion. And now we see that where that cutout is, where the sign light leads went through, down through. So we're just going to slip the heat shrink end of the window jig down into that portion and run it down in there. And I can feel that it stopped already. If we look on the other end of it, down here, hopefully nothing falls apart on me. The other end down here, I can still see that heat shrinked end of it coming out where the sign light leads are. I'm going to try to, yeah, again, doing everything on camera really sucks. It doesn't work as intended. So I'm just going to try to grab it and pull it out. There we go. Now I'm going to pull that lead out some. And looking at the other end where the window jig is, we're going to slide that up. Slide the jig up some, almost up to the windows. And as you see, I'm going to pull from the bottom of the box where those leads are, and you see them disappear. So the next step is going to be applying the window panels inside the box. It's a nice, good fit. A little bit of friction to hold it in place, hopefully. Here we go. Press them up. You want to make sure that the back panels, the back of the panels, window panels, are flush against the inside of the box. Otherwise, the jig's going to have trouble getting up there and it won't fit right. Yes, you can hear things going into place. And last window panel. And do it exactly where I can't see it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know the camera's going to go all wonky and scream at me, as are you guys watching this. Okay, so I've put that in. Now we see the window panels are all in place with the frames on them, and they're holding pretty well, and the jig is still a little bit below them. Now the next step is going to be, I'm just doing this by feel. I'll try to do it from the underside where you can see. I'm pushing the jig up from the bottom. And you see, there, it slips right into place. The seam is against the bottom of the shelf. Nice and flush. At this point, we'll flip it over and take a look. And in fact, now might even be a good time to test it. I'm going to put the connector on the sign light leads first, because I know that's exactly what they are. I'm going to put the housing on those pins, and then I'm going to take the heat shrink off of the window lights and put the housing on those, and one more power test before I do that, since I just fussed with the jig. All right, the next step, and we got the wires out of the way. I did notice I had not put connectors and labels on some of them. So now I've got the top light and the roof pin. They're all tested. So I've got the labels on those wires, as well as the connector housings. And I decided to put the sign light was already tested from inside the box, so I put the connector and label on that. And I just went ahead and put the connector and label on the wind light as well, even though we haven't done the final test on that from the bottom of the box. So I'm just going to use a couple DuPont jumpers and to be able to test that. But before we flip it back over, the last piece is this retaining ring that holds the light jig in place so it doesn't slip out. It keeps it nice and secure, and it's just a snap-in, no glue. So we'll want to orient it so the flat side of the ring, the flat portion of the ring, faces the light jig. So now you see I flipped it over. We've got the sloped portions facing the bottom of the box and the flat portion underneath facing the light jig. You'll also notice the two corners of the light jig. The two corners of the light jig are a little bit different. The narrower inside corner here goes towards the small inside corners of the window jig, and then the wider portions here go towards the wider portions of the jig. So I'm just going to rotate this once. It looks like it's all lined up, and I'm going to drop it in. It kind of has to go in at an angle because it's supposed to be a snug fit. So drop it in there, and excuse the blur and the reach. I'm just going to have to set it in flat against the window jig, the window light jig. And I didn't get the satisfying snap that I usually do, but I think I've changed the dimensions of everything since, oh, there it is, since printing this this test box earlier on. So there it is. So the ring now is holding up and retaining the light jig. So if we flip it over, that light jig isn't going anywhere. And this is what it's going to be like inside the box for at the final build, aside from the brain box at the bottom being missing. So there we go. And next we're going to do the final power test of those window lights we just did. Now we're set up to do the final light test. Now that the window light jig is inserted and the window panels are in place, I've attached jumpers from my battery box to the window lights. Since I decided to put the housing on in advance, I just used a couple DuPont jumpers, male DuPont jumpers between the housing of the window lights, and clamped them onto the leads of the power box. So here we go. Here we go. Actually, that looks quite nice. I had these panels prepped in advance for just such an occasion. You know, look to another side. Yep. So the lights are lit all around. Front, back, and sides of the box. And just in case you want to get a glimpse of it, I'll also double check the sign lights. All I've done is swap the male DuPont jumpers from the window light connector to the sign light connector, and we're going to test those as well. Yep, that looks great. I'm not going to try powering both at the same time from the battery box. That requires more jumpers and wires, and it'll look pretty janky. So there we go. This portion is done. I've got the lighting back. The box is inverted upright again. As you can see, we still have the 4-pin pogo connector in the box. And one of the last steps, now that we've verified the window light jig, the reason for waiting on putting the magnet adapter in that final corner was so that we could troubleshoot the window light jig and be able to remove it and fuss with things if necessary before putting that adapter in with the magnets. Because once it goes in, it's kind of hard to take out. I would recommend putting a little bit of hot glue. Let me use something instead of my fingers. I would recommend putting a little hot glue along the side here to make sure that the magnet adapter stays retained. Because now that the light jig is in, you won't be able to access the underside to put hot glue in it. So putting it from above right before you slip this connector in there is a great idea. I'm not going to slip this in there because I do need to take it apart, but I've already verified earlier that it does work. And once you get that in there, you can put the lid on. you will feel a very nice hold on it. It will be very satisfying. And we shall move on to the next part of the build. I almost forgot to mention, per the guide, once you put the adapter, the last magnet adapter in there, and we're done with the top of the build, we're done with the testing, and you can go on ahead and apply the pin connector, the pin housing for the battery box or the 18650 battery holder if that's what you ordered. Since we're done with the testing for the bare wire portion thoroughly, go ahead and put that connector and label on. In fact, almost everything should have connectors and labels on them now, if you look at this. Otherwise, it will get confusing very fast, and you're going to have to do extra testing to figure out what's what. But it's a lot easier if you already have labels on everything, at least sticking out of the box, and then now apply the labels to and connector housings to everything else that's left. One of the battery holders, the speaker, and the USB-C port, if not already done.